Hi, Peter Charles here, folks fly fishing, and today we're going to tie a Norwegian fly. It's called the Skaidi. Now I don't speak Norwegian, so I'm probably butchering that name, but if you could help me pronounce it better, please do. It's a predominantly green and black fly. It's designed for off-color conditions, tougher conditions. And I know in the East Coast some people also like green patterns, so it's probably a good one to have in the arsenal anytime the water is brownish or brownish green or like greenish tinge. And I don't see why this wouldn't work for steelhead as well. Especially when they've seen a lot of standard steelhead colors, then you wave something different in front of them, you might get a better reaction. So let's get tying the Skaidi. Our hook today is a salmon single in a size 4. We're going to be using 8/0 black thread. Our tag and rib is oval silver in a small size. Our tail is green floss. Our rib is silver mylar. And the throat is dyed black hackle. You can also do this fly with a green throat. Now when I originally looked at the picture for this fly, it had a green throat. I encountered another picture with a black throat. So I decided that I'd do it both ways, so you'll see both variants. I think it frankly looks better with the green. And we're using gray squirrel dyed green as the wing. So let's get started. So since this is going to be both the tag and the rib, make sure you take off enough to use of the silver tinsel. Start off by getting rid of that tag. I just bring your thread out of the way. Put a couple of firm wraps in there. Now, I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to try to minimize the amount of wraps I'm putting to hold all of this together to try and lessen the amount of lump that's being created at the back end of the fly. You've seen in other videos where I fill that space. This time I'm not filling the space, I'm trying to minimize the bump. So next we're going to put on the floss. So this just functions as a little tail. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to put a little bit on top. And then just going to fold this back and continue wrapping. Now I'm just going to cut that. Okay, so there's our tail. Now here's where the minimal comes in. I'm just going to fold that back with one wrap. So now I've positioned the rib so it's pointing backwards so it can be used once I've finished with the mylar. So we're using the silver side of the mylar, so I tied in gold side facing. And then I come forward. Nice and smoothly because we want that mylar to lay on nice and smoothly. Try not to leave too many gaps. Okay, now try to get that mylar right at the back so it doesn't create a gap. You see that gap right there? I'm going to take care of it if I can. Oh, it's sliding off. Oh well. That's one of the problems with the bumps that you get. If you don't take the bump out, the mylar can slide. I'm pulling it as tight as I can to keep it from sliding, and it's still, see, it's creating a little lip. So I'm just going to have to sort of sacrifice a little bit of black there to get it to go in. It's still doing it. You can see the consequences of leaving a bump is that you can have problems getting your mylar to lay flat. So I'm going to have to put an extra wrap there and see if I can get around it. There we go. No, it still slipped off. I'm glad I'm showing you this problem. This is one of the reasons why we don't want to leave bumps. But I'm going to end up having to probably leave that in there. Yeah. Now we just go back in touching turns. little bit of black there, so let's retrace our steps. Try to avoid leaving black lines if you can. One thing when you're putting on a rib, it tends to hide those little black lines that you might leave behind. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and cover that black as best I can. There we go. Now I'll just come forward with the rib. There we go. Now it's time for our black cock. And now our wing, which I have stacked. Okay, now it's time for a head cement. I just want to mention something about the head. You can see that it tapers backwards, and that's not pretty, but it serves a purpose. You can see how it makes the wing lay down. I don't like my wings sticking up at an angle. I prefer them flatter on top of the fly. I feel it swims better, and it has a better profile in the water. So I often extend the head, the wraps for the head a little bit further back, and that pinches that wing back down. It's your choice whether you want to do that or not. It doesn't make for the most attractive head, but it makes, I think, for a better fishing fly. So anyway, there's the Skaidi. Give it a try. It's good for stained water conditions, and I don't see why it shouldn't work for our East Coast salmon or steelhead as well as it does for Norwegian salmon. So there you go. Cheers.